Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, this is a pre-recorded session this week as I'm traveling. So if you do have any questions, though, on Zoom, just reply to the email that you got, the confirmation email that you got, and I'll be able to get those and answer those through my email. If you're watching on YouTube, just leave a comment underneath the video, and I'll get to those. And then on Facebook, same thing, leave a comment underneath the video, and I'll get to those as well. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's national diagnostic technical trainers. Been in the training department the last 10 years or so, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, I was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep with Snap-on. So I had about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before that, I was 8 years at Subaru, so worked in a dealership, and over time, I guess, became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up with the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher cars that would come into my bay. And before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today is the power of SureTrack information. So SureTrack's been around in many different iterations for a very long time, way back since the early 90s. Actually really started with Troubleshooter. You remember that, way back with the brick, all the way up through today, where we have this wealth of experience-based information. Experience-based information can be very helpful when it comes to diagnosing a problem vehicle. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it through my retirement, wrenches don't fix cars these days. Information fixes cars. You need to have good information, and there's a lot of information that you need nowadays in order to fix a car. So really, it's not really the wrench is very minimal what we're actually doing to fix a car. Most of our time is looking up information. And I would bet we're on the same page here. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but when asked, many techs will agree that most of their diagnostic time is spent looking up information, 20, 30, 40 minutes even, trying to find all the proper information to diagnose and then repair the car after the fact. Of course, if we're taking that long, we're taking half our diag time, at least just to look up information. That's going to really decrease your efficiency. You know, if you're paid flat rate, that's a real problem. If you're paid hourly, probably less so, but you're not going to be able to turn over as many vehicles. In order to speed up diagnosis, access to information needs to be easier. We need to have the information really right on the scan tool. And luckily, we have many ways of getting that information to the scan. And of course, we have two different types of information if you really think about it. We have our OEM information, which of course is going to be direct from the manufacturer, right? It's going to be my TSBs, my recalls, my campaigns, my different repair information, you know, flow charts, and here's the torque sequence for the cylinder head and whatever else you might need from the manufacturer. Then there's what happens in the real world, because if you think about it, the majority of the OEM information that comes out is written by engineers, right? People who designed and built the cars, who may have never touched a wrench in their life. And I think there's a large swath of them that haven't. And that's why we get things like starters in the middle of valley pans, and we get oil filters in the middle of exhaust systems. But I digress. Anyway, so we have our OEM information written by engineers. Then we have our real world information, which is sourced from technicians, much like you and I. So it's based on actual repairs of actual real vehicles. What really happened in the bay at that time? It's based on a tech's experience. So sources of real world information that we can gather, that we may use in our day-to-day. How about repair orders or information that's on a repair order more specifically? So what actually fixed this problem before? If we saw this same car before with this same problem, what fixed it? Also knowledge, what's in here? The tech's knowledge from their own experience. What have I done when I saw this car before? When I saw this car with this problem before, what did I do in that case? And then we get our information from other technicians as well. Maybe the buddy in the next bay over, hey, have you seen this problem before? What happened? What was it? What have others done? Or maybe you have to call your buddy down the street at a different shop. Hey, you work on Fords all the time. What did you, have you seen this problem on this Ford Focus or whatever it happens to be, right? So what have other people? So we need to gather all this information, both OEM and that experience-based real-world information, in order to help us make a good diagnosis. Here is one of my favorite case studies that displays this. Now, you may have seen this one before, but we're going to go through it again because I think it makes a really good point. All right, so this is on a 2006 Mini Cooper S. And the customer complaint is a lack of power and an engine. All right, so they scan through the vehicle. First thing we want to do is a pre-scan, right? And the first thing that came up was a code, a P1688 code, which by definition is electronic throttle control monitor level 2-3 mass airflow calculation. So if I looked at nothing else and I just scanned the code and I just had the code definition, I would think maybe it's a problem in the throttle control system. I would think maybe it could be a mass airflow problem. It could be like maybe a leak in the air duct or a mass airflow sensor or whatever it happens to be, just at first blush, just thinking about it, right? Now, in this case, we're using a tool with Fast Track Intelligent Diagnostics. So that's going to have both OEM and experience-based information integrated into it all in one place. So the first thing we're going to look at is OEM information on the TSBs. And we see we have two TSBs. So let's look at the first one. And it's going to be on any of the Cooper S's with the W11 engine, which would be this one, the supercharged Mini Cooper back then. Customer complains of lack of power and engine is in fail-safe mode. The service engine soon light is illuminated and fault code P1688 is displayed. Possible causes. Possible air leak in the induction system. Okay, we might have thought of that. Map sensors are indicating implausible values. Okay, we thought mass airflow, map kind of close. Failure of the supercharger bypass valve, sticking operation. Okay, so that wasn't top of mind. Check the complete air intake system, including throttle body, supercharger, intercooler, and inlet manifold for air leaks. Okay, looking for possible leaks. If no problem is found, verify both the manifold pressure sensors show plausible values. If values are not plausible, refer to map sensor test module. Okay, so we test our sensors. If values are plausible, replace the supercharger bypass valve and reprogram the DME. Okay, so in that case, we need to replace the part and then do a reflap. And then it tells you how to check. Driving in first gear until 5,500 RPM, switch to second gear until 5,500. We're just beating the bag off this engine, I guess. And tells you how to drive it. If the fault doesn't return, I guess it's okay. Please adhere to all traffic regulations. All right, next one, diagnostic tips. Customer complains about lack of power and engine in fail-safe mode. Same problem we have. Service engine soon lights on, P1688 code. Possible failure of supercharger bypass valve. When performing a DIS GT1 test module after fault P1688 is stored, in most cases, the test plan incorrectly directs the technician to replacement of the DME control module. So that's the digital motor electronics, BMW and Mini. So that's the computer. So when diagnosing the fault, inspect proper operation of the bypass valve. Using a handheld vacuum pump, activate the bypass valve and observe its operation. If it's sticking, replace it. All right, so once again, they're directing you to do the bypass valve because their built-in test plan said, oh, well, it's got to be the computer. And they're replacing tons of computers, not solving this problem. So, you know, that's something to be concerned about, I would say. So what have we learned so far just going through the OEM information? We can either, if we just follow the test plan and looked at nothing else, we may be taking an almost $1,400 gamble, putting a new computer in there, which probably isn't going to fix this problem. And if it's the problem this car had, it definitely wouldn't fix the problem. So almost $1,400. Or $116 for this bypass valve. I was able to find like an aftermarket. So that wasn't too bad, but that's still $100+ gamble plus labor. So do we want to do that? I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm not just going to rely on that TSB. Maybe there'll be things I check out, but I need more information first. I want to see, first off, experience-based information. What have other people done in this situation? So we go in, we have our TSBs, and next one's going to be this graph over here, this top repairs graph. Now, you've probably seen this. If you use the Snap-on scan tool at any time in the last 5-6 years, that was on Wi-Fi, that had current software on it, you're going to see this. It's anything from the Solus on up is going to have this information. So this is a top repairs graph based on billions of real-world repairs. The number one repair in this situation for a 2006 Mini Cooper S with a P1688 code is overwhelmingly replace the harmonic balance. That's not a computer. It's not a bypass valve. That's a harmonic balancer. You might think that's crazy. It doesn't make sense. Explain it to you as we go. Also, number 2 is a crankshaft bolt, so it's probably going to go together. Drive belt tensioner, 3 of those I would see probably going together. Place supercharger, that might be some other misdiagnosis, or maybe it actually was the problem in this case, because I mean it's good calculator for that. And then replace the fuel filter, maybe that just happened to be on the RO. So overwhelmingly though, harmonic balance, peaking at 100,000 miles. So we go down a little bit further to additional SureTrack information, that in this case on Intelligent Diagnostics on the bottom. Customer states engine lights on, vehicle lacks power. Hey, it's exactly our problem. Confirmed the customer's complaint, found the vehicle lacked power and acceleration. Connected a scan tool and found P1688. At idle, backprobe mass airflow sensor and monitored the sensor signal on a lab scope. Mass airflow sensor signal observed on the scope was within spec. Performed a second road test of the vehicle and heard a slight metallic noise from the front of the vehicle and smelled a burning rubber odor. Hoisted the vehicle, inspected the front of the vehicle, and noticed the crankshaft pulley had separated from the harmonic balancer. Crankshaft pulley is integrated to the harmonic balancer and is replaced as an entire unit. Damaged crankshaft pulley causes DME to miscalculate the vehicle's engine speed, therefore DME miscalculated the engine load and set the trouble code. So, in short, here's what happened. So if you've ever seen a harmonic balancer, front crank pulley, what have you, the majority of them are 2 pieces of steel with rubber in them. We got the outer ring, we got that runs the belt, we got the inner ring that turns off the crankshaft, and then we have the rubber in between to dampen vibrations and make everything run smoother. Harmonic balancer. Now, if it fails, usually when I've seen any manufacturer, they can fail, but usually when they fail, it's on a front back mounted engine, right? And then it just kind of ejects itself through the radiator. There's nothing really to stop it. So it just kind of goes out through the front, and then all sorts of havoc gets wreaked. But on a Mini Cooper, and really anything else with a transverse mounted engine, but especially a Mini Cooper since it's so small, it's transverse mounted, so that pulley is on one side of the engine, and it doesn't have very far to go. There's not a lot of clearance there on the side. So when it does fail, it just kind of goes tink, and it can't completely fall off or fail completely. So it's still there, and it might still be turning here and there. But what belt is on that is the supercharger. So the engine is turning at one speed, expecting the supercharger to turn at another speed, which it's now not because they're not really physically connected anymore. And then we now have an airflow discrepancy. The engine's pumping a certain amount of air versus what the supercharger is supposed to be putting in, and they don't match. So the computer says, well, it must be a mass airflow problem or something like that. So we're going to throw it. That's what happens. Now, if we go down a little further, I'm pretty sure we can figure this out with our eyes and ears too. Just kind of take a look, but let's see what additional fixes there are. The top one is replaced the harmonic balancer. The other one is replaced the map sensor. So in that case, maybe it was bad. It says how they tested it, put it up to a vacuum source, used it to check for pressure to short or open. Test results verify the manifold absolute pressure sensor was faulty, replaced. Next one's troubleshooter tips. So that's going to give us some tips, or we can go into ShopKey if we have Shop. So in this case, we link to ShopKey or other repair information, ShopKey Mitchell. And then we see right there, crankshaft balancer, pulley damper. And we see we get TSBs, we get real fixes, we get top repairs, we get causes and fixes. Everything we just kind of looked at, except for causes and fixes. We're going to get into detail on that in a little bit when we go live. But that's pretty much the same information we got from using Fast Track Intelligent Diagnostics with the integrated SureTrack. And here's what it would look like. Now you can do a Google search for broken Mini Cooper harmonic balancer because there's a ton of them out there. It's pretty common. And they're all pretty much going to look like this. Things warm up, things cool off. Rubber gets brittle, rubber breaks. So you can see this is kind of the outside ring. This is the inside ring. That's where the crankshaft would go. Crankshaft pulley's there. And then the belt, of course, would go on the outside. This is kind of flipped over. If you flip this thing over on top of here, you can see where it was rubbing a little bit. There's some marks, some scoring. So yeah, that was used to be one piece, kind of, sandwiched together, all nice and solid, but not anymore. And it broke apart, but it didn't have really far to go. So that's why you might not necessarily notice it a catastrophic failure. So let's talk about this SureTrack information we've been discussing. It is based on vast, and I mean vast, amounts of data that's out We have a database of over 2.65 billion, that's billion with a B, real world repair orders, shop management system. So we know what's happening in the bay in real time on these vehicles. And we can data mine and check for complaint cause correction. What fixed the vehicle in real time, essentially real time. It's not real time, but essentially we could do that. Now, I got to thinking when I was building this class, I said, man, 2.65 billion repair orders. That sounds like a really big number, right? I'd love to have $2.65 billion. I wouldn't be doing this, but that's a lot. And we've discovered through research, scientific research and stuff like that, that human beings, just as a default, really can't comprehend numbers at that scale. I mean, millions seems big and we still have a little bit of trouble with that, but billions is considerably more than millions. So I did a little thought experiment. I said, okay, what if I took those repair orders and I had a really efficient service writer and there was only 1 page per repair order? If I printed them all out on standard US letter, 8.5 by 11 inches, and I laid them end to end the long way, how long would that trail of paper be? So came up with this. That trail of paper would be enough to go around the Earth at the equator 8 times. Then I'm able to go to the moon. Then when I get there, I still have enough paper to go around the moon at the equator 3 times, plus a little bit left over after that. That is a lot of paper. That is a lot of trees. That's a lot of ink. So luckily everything's digital and we can just kind of crunch the numbers that way. But imagine that. That's a lot of paper. The moon is not close. It's pretty far away. Fun fact, you can fit all the other planets in the solar system in between the Earth and the moon. Anyways, that's a lot. So let's see how we can utilize this vast distance of information in order to help us out. Now, little you may know, but you may not know, a lot of people don't realize that when you update your Snap-on scan tool, you will get a code, and that is good for 6 months of free SureTrack information on the web. Now, you already would get it with the tool, right? The only conditions to get it on the tools, it needs to be up to date on software, and it needs to be hooked up to Wi-Fi. Those 2 things are met, you will get access to SureTrack information on the tool. There is more information available on the web. So how would I log in? Well, first thing you're going to need to do is, it's not like SureTrack.com. It's actually ShopKeyPro.com. And you would log in. Now, if you have an individual account with Snap-on, so that'd be if you have like the Snap-on Cloud, that's an individual account. And you can also create a new one from here from the login page. If you enter the login without your SureTrack code, which I'll tell you how you can get that in a second, it's going to bring you to this page. It's going to say, hey, you either don't have a ShopKey or ProDemand subscription, which you may not, or you don't have a code. So it's going to give you some links with some other information. It does need to be a little updated. It's really anything from a Solus up through a Zeus that is current. You will get this code. So anybody ProDemand, ShopKey Pro, Sun Collision, or Snap-on Scan Tool will get a code to activate this. So when you go into your account information on your individual account, your profile manager, you will see under account information, you get like your address and stuff like that. And then there's an authorization key that there's a space to enter the authorization key. Now, if you are on software subscription, you will get an email with that key when you update. Or if you go to your franchisee and update that way on the truck, then on your receipt, there should be a code on the receipt as well. In the US, of course, it ends in US. UK, I would imagine it ends with UK. I'm not sure. But you would just plug in your authorization key there, and then you get access to it. It tells you when it's. Then once you log in, it's going to look a lot like ShopKey Pro. As a matter of fact, it'll say ShopKey Pro on the top. But you'll see I only get 3 buttons. Home, One Search Limited, and SureTrack Community. Otherwise, you would have, repair information, estimator, all that good stuff. It's like 8 different buttons. But in this case, it's limited because it's only SureTrack. I'm signed in on an account that does not have a ShopKey subscription. So I'm able to do it. So I just plugged in my car just to see what came up. And for a 2011 Subaru Forester 2.5 liter non-turbo, this is the information that comes back. It is down to the engine level. If I had a turbo, or if I switched it to a turbo, you would see the numbers. We have access to TSBs. We have access to component tests. Everything else that would be available in ShopKey is grayed out. And then you see based on analysis, 123,619 repairs. So that is based on those real world repair orders we talked about. Out of those 2.65 billion, we've gone through 123,619 that were for a 2011 Subaru Forester with a 2.5 liter non-turbo. It's a fair number of repairs. You'll see it also gives you access to this kind of pattern failures information down here on the bottom, right? Commonly replaced parts, common codes, common systems. This top 10 list is everything that's been plugged into this box up on top by people using it. So these 3 come from repair orders. This one comes from users using this. And you'll see you can use this information to kind of determine, does this car have some certain problems that pop up other than normal maintenance? In this case, it's actually kind of nice that it doesn't. So it's a 12-year-old car. So pads and rotors, yeah, obviously I've done brakes on my car probably 3 or 4 times each axle. Battery, that's, obviously wheels, spark plugs, headlight bulbs. Yeah, a lot of headlight bulbs, brake calipers, AC refrigerant, axle shafts, taillight. That's all very common stuff for a 12-year-old car. Nothing really sticks out. Codes, lean code, evap codes, cat codes, misfire codes, tons of misfire codes. That seems to be par for the course for these two. Noise heard from brakes, AC and op, engine doesn't start, all fairly common things. Nothing really jumps out. And then even over here, timing chain is number 1. It's got a timing chain, timing cover. How do I take that apart to get to the timing chain? Head gaskets are only number 10, which is surprising on Subaru, but it gives you all that information there. So you could see if there's something that jumps out. Like, for example, the Tahoe we always use for our demo. There is strong indication that they have bad AC condensers because there's many exceedingly large numbers of repairs on condensers that really, for that's a 7-year-old truck, shouldn't be that many. So apparently there's a failure rate there, and it comes in at like number 4 or 5. So it's pretty high up on the list. So you can see just at a glance, is there some weird anomaly that kind of sticks out? In this case, it seems fairly pedestrian and average. It's stuff that I would do all day long at the Subaru dealership and we wouldn't even bat an eye. So that also gives me a little bit of confidence in my vehicle. It's about to turn 180,000 miles, that really there's not too many major issues, right? So that's good to know. So let's do a little search. We'll go on the PL171 code, and what comes back, I got 369 different cards, we call them, different categories of information: TSBs, real fixes, top repairs, etc. So in TSBs, we got a couple there, a couple tips. As far as real fixes, there's a fair number of them there. It goes from 363 down to like probably 1 or 2. It's good to set the scroll. Next one's top repairs graph. That's going to be the graph that we would see on the scan tool normally. This is causes and fixes. We're going to get back to that one in a little bit. This one does more than a code. It does code combination, which I think is great with this one, trying to figure something out. Got a component testing. It's going to have the component tests that are in the tool that has, the Zeus and the Varus and all that. Triton's going to be in all those. It's going to have the graphical representation of what's in there. Of course, you can't set up the meter using this. All that gets done automatically in the tool, but you at least have the information, pinouts, and all that. Same thing with component connector comes from there. Component location also comes from there. Component operation also comes from. And then we have tips, which would be our troubleshooter tips from way back when, and we keep adding new ones too. And then back to the home screen, we have the TSBs, which gives you a full list of TSBs and full list of component tests that I can drill down through if I wanted to see them that way over the whole vehicle, not just related to the circuit. So there's a lot of information that's available there for no additional charge other than what you're paying for either a subscription or an update. Now, if you're on a software subscription, I think that's a pretty darn good value because you get all the TSBs on all the vehicles that we cover. Just that right there should be enough for us, to cover your sub for sure. So let's go live. I'm going to do something a little slightly different than what we usually do. So instead of a Zeus, we're using a Varus. And then we'll use a Solus Plus here in a minute too to show you how different it is, or the differences between them. So I'm on my 2016 Tahoe. I'm just going to do a code scan as I normally would. A little pre-scan there. And you'll see it comes back. It's just going to go through a couple different modules. There we go. It's going to save my vehicle system report. That's been taking a little bit today. There we go. So you'll see I have my two codes. I got my 300 and my 446. If I flip, then the graph changes, right? Also on the graph, this is the only tool where I can uncheck them. Like, look at the bottom here. There's like 3 or 4 of them that are almost identical. So I can see what each line does if I want to do it that way. This is the Windows-based tool is the only one that does it. And it's actually, I think, only the Veris that does it that way, just so you know. I think that's a neat little feature that's in there. Next thing is Fix It over here. Fix It's going to bring you into that #1 real fix, right? With the complaint cause correction. It's going to tell you how many times it verified fix. Next one's related tips. That's going to be your troubleshooter information. It's usually code set criteria, or here's a common problem list. Real fixes, which is going to be the ranked list of real fixes from most to least. Then if it's on a Veris Edge, and I have ShopKey, I can also link to repair information. So it's going to log me into ShopKey, log the vehicle in, and log a search for the code. This vehicle, there's my PO300. I'm going to come in here under coil. And you'll see I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 different categories of information. Some OEM information, some SureTrack information. Causes and fixes I wanted to talk. So the beautiful thing about causes and fixes, like I alluded to earlier, if I'm only checking this information when I'm hooked up with a code, I can only do one code at a time, right? So I can look at one code, I can flip to the next code and flip to the next code, but I can only look at one at a time in the scan tool. If I'm over here, though, we'll see, well, if I got a PO300 code, it could be these 7 things. If I have a PO300 in combination with a PO50D, that breaks it down to 4 things that could be. And if I have a 350D and a 219A, probably going to be the fuel injector. Happened 22 times that it fixed it. So having this information, being able to drill down on that information, if I have this code, this code, this code, and this symptom, all in combination, and it's pointing to one thing, it's probably going to be that one thing. The odds are really good that it's going to be that one thing and not something else that's not on the list, right? So I think this is a very underutilized and under-talked about function within ShopKey and SureTrack, because it is part of SureTrack information as well. So this is how it looks in ShopKey. Let me log out of this and log into my SureTrack account, which you can also do on the tool. And then we will see, I have to pull my vehicle up. I'm just going to pull it out of history here. All right, so same thing, 5.3 engine, 2016 Chevy Tahoe, and a PO300 code. Now I have 369 cards. I can't scroll down. So there's 6 cards. That was OEM information that we don't have when it comes to this. But we still have our TSBs. We still have our real fixes, top repairs. Still have the same causes and fixes graph I just showed you. Right? Goes to the fuel injector. Not going to have things like specifications, wiring diagrams, R&R, labor guide. None of that's going to be in here. But you still have a considerable amount of information on this problem, on this vehicle. Component operation, component location, tips. All that information at your fingertips, either on the tool if you got a Veris Edge, or on the web. If you have an up-to-date Snap-on scan tool and you type in the code, it will show up on the web as well. So I think that's pretty helpful, pretty powerful. So that's on a Veris Edge. Let's look at on a Solus Plus what that looks like. Since it's not Windows-based, there's a few functions that it doesn't have. So we just did a code scan again. I don't know why I put my mouse cursor over there because it's finger operated. I'll pick that PO300 again, like we did in the other one. And we'll see we have our SureTrack landing page. So we have our top repairs graph. Then we have our #1 real fix down here at the bottom. Complaint cause correction. Then we have additional related real fix. And then for some reason in the demo, it doesn't show up the troubleshooter. It does have troubleshooter information on it. It's just this is not a live vehicle, so it's not showing up. It would show up normally on a Tahoe. The other thing it brings over too is this code switcher button. So over here on the right, there's this triangle. And if I have multiple codes, I can actually flip back and forth and it'll give me that information and change it. So you can see any additional information there. So it gives you some guidance. It gives you that top hit list as to what's going on with the vehicle. And also, if you update the software, you get a code and you can use the web to look at all the other stuff I was just showing you too with it. So I think that is very, very powerful stuff built in to all of our tools from the Solus Plus all the way up through the Zeus Plus. So it's either integrated to Intelligent Diagnostics or it's available in Solus Plus, Modus Edge, Solus Legend, all of those. It's going to be, built into the tool as well within the codes. So a lot of useful information. Having that experience-based information can be very, very helpful in many situations. So hopefully you take advantage of it. That is SureTrack information. All right, let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. It's going to be ADAS fundamentals and testing. So we'll go over basics of ADAS. It's been around for a little while, but still a lot of mystery shrouded in it. So we'll talk about different ways of calibrating, what tools might be needed to calibrate, maybe some differences between the manufacturers, what's going to be there, and how do I test these systems? They have components that are able to be tested as well. So we'll talk about all of that and more next week, same time, same place as always, 6 and 9 Eastern. If you want to join on Zoom, go to snapon.com/OT to sign up there. Otherwise, the 6 p.m. Eastern class goes live to my YouTube channel. So it's youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics. Go give us a like and a follow over there, or like and subscribe. Also, the 9 p.m. Eastern class goes to my Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/SnapOnJason, all one word. Go over there and give me a follow there, and that'll be our 9 o'clock class. If you want to see any of our other previous topics in this series, anywhere from ADAS intro all the way down to maintenance functions, current probes, pressure transducers, things of that nature, 72 different episodes on a variety of topics are all available for free 24 hours a day on our YouTube channel. Once again, that's youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics. Check them out there. As far as Q&A, as I said before, this is a pre-recorded session as I'm traveling this week. But if you're watching on Zoom and you have a question, you can reply to your confirmation email. If you have a question on YouTube, just leave a comment. And if you have a question on Facebook, same thing, just leave a comment and I'll get to those when I can. Also want to mention my buddy Keith, who also does training. He does free training on specific tools. So on Wednesday, it's on Zeus Plus, and on Thursday, it's on Apollo and Triton tools. They're both at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, 4:30 Pacific on those particular days. He goes through everything from let's make sure everything's set up properly, make sure your Wi-Fi is set up. We'll talk about Snap-on Cloud. We'll talk about Security Link and all that. Then he'll go through buttonology on the tool, walking through navigationally, and then code to completion on Intelligent Diagnostics. And then after a little break, he'll also go through the scope meter functions on the tools, the respective tools as well. So join those. Those are Zoom only. So you go to snapon.com/OT, look on the right-hand side of that page, you'll be able to sign up whatever tool you're looking for. And with that, I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day, spending a little bit of time with me. Hopefully, we'll see you next week for our ADAS overview. And with that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good night and take care.